Okay. So welcome to Early Care Connection. I'm Izzy Greenberg. Today we are joined by our usual panel of local experts, Meryl Gay from the Connecticut Early Childhood Alliance and Ava Bermudez-Zimmerman from the Child Care for Connecticut's Future campaign. We've got a great presentation this morning, but before I introduce them, let me just remind everyone that the chat is a great place for folks to share technical difficulties or information for the community. If you have questions for our guests today, please go to the Q&A and put them in there, either in English or Spanish or another language, and we will do our best to get them translated and asked. We do have a full lineup for these calls for the next 2 months. So to see that full calendar, you can go to earlycareconnection.org. I'll put that into the chat, and you can see the calendar. We've added a calendar just to make things a little bit more simple. Okay, so this morning we've got a whole team here. I'm going to actually begin by introduce Kathleen Hindman, who is going to then introduce the team. There's a number of them, and they are going to help us understand how the industry is developing a registered apprenticeship program. It's really interesting, it's exciting, and I welcome you, Kathleen. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Izzy. Good morning. Buenos dias. As Izzy said, I am Kathleen Hindman. I am the project manager at the Office of Early Childhood, who is working on various workforce development initiatives. And I'm really excited to be here today. We have a great panel. So OEC, with some American Rescue Plan funding, were able to hire consultants to help the industry develop a center-based registered apprenticeship program that the Department of Labor, fingers crossed, will approve in the next couple of months. And it will be available for any centers across the state to use. So I don't want to spend a lot of time because we have a lot to go through, but really quickly, I want to introduce the consultants from social finance, who are Ryan Erickson, Sarah Stiles Osborne, and Abigail Schneider. And we also have with us some voices from the field represented by the Alliance for Community Empowerment, who have been partners with us in our workforce pilot starting in 2022, and have also attended an apprenticeship boot camp that people from all over the country attended in January, including some OEC staff and some Alliance staff and other workforce pilot staff. So I want to pass it along to social finance, who will give an overview of the work that has been done with the industry over the past several months. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Ryan Erickson. I'm a director with social finance. And we partnered with the OEC really in a number of projects, but we're excited to be partnering with the OEC on this, which is to build out a registered apprenticeship program for centers, for center-based early childhood education facilities. We are going to get into a little bit more about what that registered apprenticeship program is, what we're hoping it's going to be, and outline the model a little bit with you all. But before we do that, we wanted to highlight the apprenticeship experience that providers have. And we're going to turn it over to our friends from the Alliance for Community Empowerment to tell us a little bit more about what hosting apprentices has been like, and to give us a sense of how they've structured their program. So if that's that's I think a good place for us to start. So I'm wondering if I can pivot to have us do that, and just have our friends take it away.
Hi, my name is Barbara Baldwin. I am from Alliance. I am the Assistant Early Learning Director, and we have had a wonderful partnership with OEC. Dr. Ferguson has helped us guide this program to success. We have had, actually, we're in our 6th cohort. There has been 37 to 40 clients that have participated in this training program. We began with a syllabus so that we could hit every mark as far as what is needed. We also prepare them for the workforce. We do a CDA cohort that gets them started. With apprenticeship, it would ensure that their hours were being met so that they could get a certificate. We are so proud or humble to be able to have participated and be able to work with the amount of individuals that we have. We have shown so much success and growth even within them. Just as they are learning, we are learning, and it causes us to even be more in depth in how we facilitate the training. We have a coordinator, Diasha Johnson, who helps support the young ladies and men as they are trying to get away from their barriers or knock them barriers away. And so beyond the teaching, we also have someone to support their wellness. So I'm going to ask her just to speak a little bit about her role in the EC Workforce Development Program.
Good morning, everyone. Like Ms. Barbara stated, my name is Diasha Johnson. I'm the ECE coordinator here at Alliance for the Workforce Program. It has been my pleasure. First and foremost, I want to thank Dr. Ferguson for believing in me to head this up and supporting this program. It has been my pleasure to meet these various individuals, to see where they start out, and then to see the trajectory of them change throughout the program with what we do. We not only help them out educationally, we help them out professionally, we help them out economically, and most importantly, we help them out personally. Throughout our program, we do a wellness week where we touch on various parts that we believe can make sure that they are phenomenal educators, not only in the classrooms, but also personally within themselves. Like Ms. Baldwin said, one of the things that we have done here is ensuring that we knock down all of the barriers. And one of those barriers that we have come to see to be a success is ensuring that we do wellness. It makes no sense to have educators in a classroom and they themselves are not mentally prepared to go forth and being successful educators. So that we've seen to be, that's one of the things that we saw to be a great success here at Alliance. It is amazing. This is an amazing program. These individuals have literally changed from day one to the last day when we see them at graduation. So it's definitely a pleasure to see them grow.
The other thing that I would like to add on is that it also helps the workforce. You know, many of our individuals who have participated and have graduated have an opportunity to even apply at Alliance. You know, one of the things that Dr. Ferguson says all the time, Alliance is a one-stop shop that, you know, we try to support in all areas. To date, I can say proudly, out of the 37 of the individuals that went through our training, and we still have 2 groups, so it's even less than that, that 17 of them have been hired within our organization. The others have gotten jobs. We stay in touch with them to ensure that they know that Alliance is still for them here as they continue their journey. We have a participant who has went through the course who would like to share her experience with Alliance and the ECE workforce.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Katia Sayes, and I was cohort number 4. Honestly, it's been a blessing to be participant of this program because not only support a dream that I had before, it gave me the tools, and I have a wonderful experience, not only because I was able to come here and do all the work, but because everything they put together for us. And that helped us to look different, like the way they want to do everything. So now I think I want to do it 100% even better, because even when she explained about the wellness week, that helps everyone in that group that day, well, actually the week, to see things different, like more positive, and help us mentally to be prepared. So I think it's like they say, it's one-stop shop. Everything is included. Not only the wellness, they give you, I think, cards for the gas, so people that cannot make it, they will be able to, get to the place on time, and they be able to not worry about, oh, I don't have gas. They gave you everything you need, actually everything you need, all the information, the trainings. So I'm very thankful to be able to participate here. So now I want to continue my education in this program. Actually, yeah, and I have a wonderful experience when I went to the site to work with the kids. I enjoy 100%, and now I feel more dedicated to help the kids, and be there for them, and be a support, not just for them, for the family too, for the families. So I don't know if you want me to say it in Spanish too, or good enough.
We actually have simultaneous translation happening. And so there is somebody who is doing that for us. But thank you.
Thank you.
And I'd like to add one more thing that also was an additive to this program. We also work with the high school students who do the exact same thing that the regular participants do. And in seeing that, that really opened up the door to see that we're touching all ages to ensure that this workforce is a success.
Thank you so much, Dayasha, and thank you to Katia for sharing a bit about your experience. We really appreciate that you can help us put some more detail behind, help explain the benefit that we believe a registered apprenticeship program brings to the workforce, and also to thank you for your work on this, and the incredible work you're doing. And with that, I'd like to see if I can pivot us to talking a little bit about the registered apprenticeship program itself, and telling you all a little bit more about what that is and why specifically we're here today. I'm wondering if we have some slides to share with you. Wondering if we can, if my team can pull those up for us. May just take a second. Okay, I think we can go ahead to slide 3. So just very quickly, we have 3 goals trying to get across today in meeting with you folks. So, first of all, I want to explain OEC's goal, the goal that's motivating the apprenticeship program. And that is to support the retention and recruitment of a professional, high quality, early childhood educator workforce, and also to take action to support providers with staffing and experience, the staffing and experience that will help children thrive. So that's definitely an overarching goal of OEC, and within that we see the apprenticeship program, the registered apprenticeship program, is very aligned. The project in particular, the registered apprenticeship program, is to help center-based providers design, or have center-based providers help us design a registered apprenticeship to both advance program quality goals and to help early childhood education entrance to the field achieve credentials, get on the job experience, and do that with supports that will help make their careers rewarding and successful. You know, we certainly heard a bit about that. And the support, how important the supports can be from Katya just a moment ago. And then, so specifically within this meeting, what we're hoping to do is we'd like to get some initial feedback on the proposal that we have for a center-based early childhood educator registered apprenticeship program. Because we need to make sure that this program aligns with provider needs. We need to make sure that as experts in the workforce, that the proposal we have here makes sense to you, and that it's going to help support your goals for quality and for making sure that you have the staff and to support them in ways that will ensure they have the long and successful careers in early childhood education. Can we go to the next slide, please? So I'm going to start up by covering the key components of the registered apprenticeship program. So a registered apprenticeship program allows someone to get paid for on-the-job training while they work toward certification. And we'll talk a little bit more about that too. The on-the-job training is kind of the is really in a way the main focus of the apprenticeship program, certainly the biggest share of the time. Apprentices are employed by a provider as they work towards a degree or certification. They receive on-site mentoring. Peer mentors and coaches provide one-on-one training and support. Classroom education and credential attainment, apprentices work toward a credential alongside their on-the-job training, as I mentioned. Apprentices also have access to wraparound supports. You know, these could include a number of things. They could include stipends for transportation, access to childcare, tech supports, and different supports that will help someone continue to focus on their apprenticeship experience. When they graduate from the apprenticeship, apprentices are guaranteed a salary increase as well. Go on to the next slide, please. So just briefly to touch on the benefits, and you know, certainly we've heard some already, but to underline them a little bit here, we believe that the registered apprenticeship program will allow or like empower providers to hire entry-level staff working towards an early childhood education credential, helping them increase the possible staffing pool. We know that staffing is a major challenge to providers today, and we believe this is one way to help expand the pool. The apprenticeship is also, it's going to provide the basis for a statewide quality standard, making it easier to train staff. And we'll also set some criteria that will be transferable across the state and across programs so that other providers hiring apprentices will know that it's a marker of quality. And also the registered apprenticeship program in this cycle is going to be connected to an RFP that will allow providers to apply for funding that can help support the apprentice's experience. And then, can we go to the next slide? Just very briefly to give an overview of the timeline here. We are, as Kathleen mentioned, we are hoping to submit, we're planning to submit, don't see any obstacles to doing that, the proposal for the registered apprenticeship program this month, after we get feedback from all of you. We are then going to work toward the development of the RFP for the funding that will support the implementation of the apprenticeship. And the goal is that the RFP will open this summer, and that the program, the Registered Apprenticeship Program itself, will launch in earnest early next year. And that's it. It's the overview.
Wonderful. Now that we've sort of gone over the overview, we're going to dive into what the ECE apprenticeship for center-based providers would actually look like. Before there, we first wanted to review what the FCC registered apprenticeship looks like. So this one is already live and has been received feedback from FCCs have been approved. So on the next slide, you'll see the key components that Ryan was talking about, and now actually what the actual criteria are for the FCC registered apprenticeship. So the on-the-job learning and competencies, you see there's the NAFCC accreditation, and that apprentices would be in the program for 2,000 hours or about 1 year. The credentials earned in the classroom would be the CDA. Additional classes that providers felt like it was really important for apprentices to complete in addition to the CDA is provider wellness, which we've heard from CP Alliance is clear and important to the success of their program too. Mentorship and coaching, again, another really important part of what makes this program successful. So apprentices have access both to peer mentors who are there for on-the-job support and training, as well as coaches who come around to do evaluation throughout the process to make sure apprentices have the skills needed necessary to be quality providers in the field, as well as so that they will have their CDA credential test at the end. And then to sort of again emphasize the importance of this mentorship and coaching, the training ratio we have is 1 peer mentor to 2 apprentices to really make sure there is that time for that one-on-one learning. A key thing to note here about the core components is that this is the minimum requirement. So all apprenticeships will have these components. There's always the possibility for a provider to offer more, to go beyond this. If you go to the next page, we'll now see, based off of provider feedback and design sessions we've had so far, a proposed core components for transferring that FCC apprenticeship for center-based staff. The majority is the same because there has been successes and standardization, but there are some differences as well that center-based providers felt was important for them to have in their program. So the first change that you'll see is on the job learning and competencies. It's the CDA competency standards, not NAFCC, just because NAFCC is for FCCs. So we decided that the CDA would likely be a better fit, but it's the same length of 1 year. The credentials earned in hours of classroom instruction are the same, with CDA credential being what you will receive by the end of your apprenticeship. The classes, provider wellness classes are still there. However, this proposal is also advocating for medication administration and cultural competency training as other additional courses that would be completed online that apprentices would need to complete in order to graduate from the program. Those medication administration, as we all know, is sort of very straightforward, and there is one course that everyone will compete. Cultural competency training, it'll be up to the provider to look through a set of programs and decide which one makes the most sense based off of where that provider is located and what community they are working in. And then mentorship and coaching and the training ratio are also the same, with the 1-to-2 ratio being very important. And then coaches are employed externally and peer mentors are on the site to help with the job training and career navigation. So that was sort of spend a little bit more time going through how we came to these decisions, and then sort of ask for feedback as well and give you a little bit more insight about the discussions that went into us ending where we are.
Abigail, you're breaking up just a little bit for me. So could you repeat that last piece, the last component you highlighted, just so everybody can hear it? Thank you.
The last component was the training ratio and mentorship and coaching, and how we're keeping those the same
as the FCC apprenticeship. So we keep a 1-to-2 ratio in order to ensure everyone gets the training that they need to succeed in the program. Great. So now this is just now diving a bit further and time to learn how we can, as we said, we're working toward the CDA competency standards with 1 year and that would take course over the course of 1 year. We did look at the NIAC professional competency standards because that would potentially align better with unifying framework and another sort of core competency that people know about. But NIAC professional competency is really for people working towards a BA. And so it wouldn't make sense to have it for the CDA credentials. And so providers in our design sessions really thought the CDA national standards align better with what this program was going towards. There could be additional apprenticeships in the future that have someone work towards the BA, and then the NIAC professional competency standards could be a really strong fit there. And then again, we decided that the credential people would work towards is that CDA credential. Some individuals were worried that this would be exclusive. And that some providers may not be able to get here or be able to support someone a standard credential that all providers will be working towards as the minimum. Once we really sort of thought about that, this made the most sense for entry-level staff to be working towards. I'll pause here and see if there's any questions around these that have not been answered. Okay, it looks like Sarah's doing a great job answering them.
Yeah.
So I will move forward.
There is one question in the chat, and actually if folks can try to put their questions in the Q&A, that makes it a little easier. But question in the chat is, I applied for this program back in November and curious if we'll be getting updates soon.
Kathleen, can I pass that one over to you? Because I know this program hasn't launched yet, so I don't think it might be a different.
Okay, so they may have applied for something different. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, yes.
Mhm.
I don't see that question.
Yeah, no, someone put that in the chat.
Oh, in the chat, I'm sorry.
Yep. No, I know it's confusing. And if
applied for
folks
this
could put
program
things
back
in the Q&A, that helps.
So, hi, Marion. I'm not sure what program you applied for, but this is a registered apprenticeship program being developed by center-based employers for approval through the Connecticut Department of Labor. Separate and apart from that, the Office of Early Childhood will be issuing a request for proposals related to this apprenticeship program later in the summer. So if you could give some detail or, send a message offline to the OEC program that you applied for, we could get you some information on that. And if I could just, the first question in the Q&A, Sarah answered, but I just want to add to, again, separate and apart from the request for proposals that there's some funding that the Office of Early Childhood has available. This registered apprenticeship program is an employer program. So you, the employer, hire somebody just as you would a year ago, 10 years ago, 10 years from now. But this is a framework that you are able to use through the Department of Labor. You register that staff person, and then you can run them through this program, and it's standardized for both you and the employee. So to answer the question, who pays the salary? The employer pays the salary. So I hope that helps give some more information to that first question.
Sure. And we do have a question here from Georgia. Once you set these standards for all employers, How will an ECE employer do a registered apprenticeship without funding from the OEC?
Okay, so the standards are, they're not for all employers. Any employer in the state is able to develop their own apprenticeship program and have it approved by the Department of Labor. The idea behind this is that the Office of Early Childhood thought that it would be more efficient for early childhood employers, given that you are stretched pretty thin in terms of the ability to, carve out time to develop a registered apprenticeship program. And there's a workforce crisis, a staffing shortage. We thought that it would be a good idea to gather together a number of employers to develop a program that worked for a lot of them as minimum standards. And then if any employer wants to take that but add to it, then of course they can. As was mentioned before, these are minimum standards. So as far as these are, no one's setting the standards for employers. The employers are developing this registered apprenticeship program, and without funding from OEC. So again, it's an employer training program. So just like in other industries where plumbers or hairdressers are trained to a certain standard, but they're paid by their employer, this is the same way. You're hiring a staff person that you need. They're filling a slot that's open at your site, and you are paying them. This opportunity that the OEC will be posting later in the summer will be funding through the American Rescue Plan. So it's, if you will, one-time funding. We could, in theory, go to the legislature beyond that funding and say, hey, this seems to work for our workforce, and it's possible that that could be funded in the future, but that's by no means a guarantee.
The follow-up is, and if these are the minimum standards, can an independent ECE set up an RA without these standards?
So any employer can apply to the Department of Labor and develop a registered apprenticeship. It can only be called a registered apprenticeship if it's registered through the Department of Labor, but any employer can set up any workforce training program for any industry without needing to register it with the Department of Labor. It just can't be called a registered apprenticeship in that case.
And what would be the requirements for the center in order to be approved by the Department of Labor?
So the standards across all industries for a registered apprenticeship is it's paid work. So you're hired for a job, and you're hired for the job beyond when the training ends. So it's not just a training program and then you have to go find your job. There's an on-the-job training component. There's a minimum number of hours. So typically it's a minimum of 1 year. Some apprenticeship programs can be 2 years, 3 years. But for this particular example, it's a minimum of 1 year. There has to be related instruction. So that could be at a college, it could be at some kind of institute that is specific for the industry. So in the example of early childhood, the CDA could be from a college or not from a college. There needs to be a wage increase associated with it. And it needs to be a portable credential that the employee receives at the end of their training. So portable meaning they can go to a different site within the state, or it could be a national credential, so in another state, and that is recognized.
And who is on the committee to develop the training, and how were they selected?
So there's not a committee per se. So we hired the social finance as consultants, and social finance reached out to a number of small, medium, and large centers across the state, centers that take federal funding for slots, state funding for slots, only private pay for childcare slots, and had a series of design sessions last month, and then this presentation today to get additional feedback. And then at the end of today, there will be a survey going out for additional feedback.
Okay, thank you. I think that's it for the open questions right now. If you guys have, I don't know if there's more of the presentation.
Great. The other part of the presentation, just the next slide, gives a little bit more detail about the other core components. So additional classes, the 3 that we're recommending that the providers have given feedback on are provider wellness classes, medication administration, and cultural competency training. Again, these would be online in our necessary preparation in the fields, and then providers would be able to identify which competency training would be best for their apprentice based off of the region of the state that they're in. Mentorship and coaching, again, peer mentors will be on site and support on the job training and career navigations. And then coaches would be externally employed to help with program evaluation. Right now, the FCC mentorship program does have additional training for mentors so that they can excel at helping individuals as mentors. And we've heard that from providers as being something that will be helpful for the center-based program as well. And then again, the training ratio of being 2 to 1 to keep it very small so that there is that time for on-the-job training. So we'll pause here again to see if there's any questions or feedback about these 3 hard components of the registered apprenticeship.
Not right now. Nope. There is somebody who's put in a comment about the NAEYC professional standards and competencies. So that will be in the Q&A for folks to see.
Great. And we did look at the NIAC different competencies, and it did still seem from overall understanding that they were blended together, and it was hard to parse out which ones were specifically for ECE1 and was really sort of targeting those at the bachelor's degree. But we will go back and check again to make sure we didn't miss anything around the NIAC credentials.
All right.
The next slide.
I was actually gonna one other, and Abigail, you are jumping in and out. I don't know if there's a way for you to improve your Wi-Fi. And quickly, I just also wanted to call on Georgia, who I know thinks a lot and deeply about apprenticeships. And Georgia, I think you had an additional question you wanted to ask.
I did, and I really want clarification, because the way that apprenticeship, my understanding of apprenticeship is supposed to work is that the employers, as Kathleen indicated, that the employers set the apprenticeship. But this is a process that OEC is going through with Social Ventures Partnership to set the minimum standards for apprenticeship for the state. And so I just need clarification. If I wanted to set up my apprenticeship program, I did not want to do a wellness component to it, and I did not want to do a mentorship component to it. I do not want to maintain a ratio of a 2 to 1 peer mentor ratio. Would I be able to, as Hope Child Development Center, the employer who may not have access to these funding, would Hope Child Development Center be able to set those up without these minimum standards? Because if we are imposing minimum standards on an apprenticeship, then I am presuming that every single apprenticeship program that submits to the Department of Labor must have these minimum standards. And if I am not going to be supported by funding from the OEC because those fundings are limited, would I be able to set up my own apprenticeship that does not include these components that are very costly to an individual providers to do this and to basically be financially responsible for building these standards into my apprenticeship without any funding from the OEC.
So I can take that as a,
Thank you.
hi, Georgia. So that's really, it's not a question. You are correct that you can develop your own registered apprenticeship. As far as whether it's approved, that's a question for the Department of Labor. So you would develop your own standards, and you would submit that to the Department of Labor to be approved. There are lots of registered apprenticeships housed at the Department of Labor at present within industries where one employer has a set of standards, a different employer has a set of standards, and the difference might be that they just call it a different job title, right? So if this registered apprenticeship that the industry is developing, the early child care center-based industry is developing, let's say it's called Early Childhood Educator 1 or Assistant Teacher or something like that, and yours is called Child Care Educator or something like that, there would be two different RAPIDS codes housed at the Department of Labor. So I hope that answers the question, but every registered apprenticeship is a minimum standard, and every employer has the opportunity to go over and above after they've registered their apprentice to run through the program that's listed at the DOL. So every apprenticeship across every industry is what's considered a minimum standard that you can go over and above, but you can't go below. So you couldn't say, okay, this staff person's doing really well. We're only going to have them train for 1,500 hours, which is approximately 9 months. The DOL would say, nope, you need to do another quarter of training for this person if you want them to receive the certificate from the Department of Labor. If the same person you said they're struggling a little bit, they need to do 2,200 hours instead of 2,000 hours, the Department of Labor would say, that's fine. Once they get through all the training that you feel they're competent in their profession, we will give them their certificate saying they have graduated from the apprenticeship program. So I hope that helps.
It does clarify, Kathleen, that because based on my conversation with the Department of Labor, once OEC sets this minimum standard, we have to abide by this minimum standard. And this is my concern, that if I independently wanted to register, once OEC has set the minimum standard for apprenticeship, I would not be able to submit an apprenticeship program that does not meet the standards. And so therefore, I would not be able to do apprenticeship outside of this framework. And if OEC cannot guarantee me as an employer that they will make the funding available to basically do this program, I, as a small childcare provider who may not have all of the resources of, say, a larger organization, would not have access to apprenticeship as a pathway for training. And this is my concern with this approach to this. I'm a part of the workforce program. I think it is amazing. We are experiencing some of the same success as Alliance in our apprenticeship, but I'm always going to speak up for making sure that inequities are not built into systems when we are doing these things. We have to not think just of well-resourced program, but very small providers who are struggling to find staff, that if we are setting a framework that disadvantage them, then we are not necessarily serving the system at large. And that's the only thing I will say to that.
Understood. And that's why we, you know, looked across the state and across sizes of providers and types of providers when doing these design sessions. So let's move on to finish up the slideshow, and maybe some more questions will be answered within that.
Sure. Ava, I know you have a question. Are you, is it an urgent question, or do you want to wait till the end of the slides?
I'll go ahead and wait.
Okay, thank you.
So we're almost at the end of the deck here. Here are the CDA competencies that we discussed that will be used to ensure that the apprentice is working towards the skills needed so that they can succeed. The coaches will be going around throughout the year to evaluate them across these CDA competencies, and then they will still have to pass the CDA test at the end of their apprenticeship as well. So that also gets at part of the quality question that is in the Q&A as well. And then I'll quickly go to the last slide here, which looks at wraparound supports for the program. So these wraparound supports are based off of the larger feedback sessions done throughout the Blue Ribbon panel work, with the ones bolded in teal, I guess you would call that color, are ones that we know are key and important to being part of the success of a registered apprenticeship program. These, as you'll see, were not included in the minimum components because we, as a question around not wanting to overburden a provider for the costs of creating this registered apprenticeship program. So through the RFP, there will likely be funds available so that a provider can supply some of these wraparound supports. And in creating the apprenticeship program, we're also thinking very strongly about existing programs that OEC is already providing to providers to make sure that other wraparound supports are available to apprentices as well. But we understand that wraparound supports are key to the success of this program, both for the apprentice and also providers who are offering this service. And these are the ones that are coming to mind as we build that out. So I'll pause here to see if there are additional wraparound supports that you think it's important for us to be considering that you don't see already listed here.
Ava, would this be a good time to ask your question?
Sort of, kind of, but I'll go ahead and ask before we go back to the Q&A because there's some questions coming in. My curiosity is part of the framework that was created here doesn't really specify a payment scale system for providers completing said program. So I just wanted to hear more about that. And I only asked because when helping assist in the creation of the home-based provider apprenticeship program, the Department of Labor made it very clear, and they were very firm, that an apprenticeship program at the completion of it must deliver some sort of additional compensation for the person who completed the program.
So Eva, that is one component of the registered apprenticeship, that there's a wage increase, and that as far as the RFP is concerned, that could certainly be a component that could be contemplated. Now, beyond the RFP opportunity, that would be something that the childcare business would need to look at. But in the meantime, we're hopeful that some wage supports, that the idea of wages increasing across the sector will be addressed. Hopefully before the RFP opportunity ends, but certainly by the time it does end.
That's helpful. I will take this opportunity to remind folks who are on this call and stayed for the duration of this presentation, who are home-based providers, there is a home-based apprenticeship program and it is different with different standards than what you see on the screen.
Also, very briefly, I wanted to address one of the comments in the Q&A, one of the questions, asking about who we contacted for the design sessions. They didn't hear about this, and I mean, that's exactly why we're here. We figured that we wanted more input. We wanted to get more of the communities, get more provider feedback. So, encourage you please to provide feedback as we're here. And also, if you prefer, we will be sending a survey after this to collect additional feedback. If you prefer to submit feedback to us about the Registered Apprenticeship Program proposal through that instead.
Okay, thanks. Did you have a little bit more presentation to go, or are we finished with that part?
There are just 2 more slides to wrap up.
Okay, great.
So we did the Q&A discussion. Thank you all. And then, as we've mentioned, there'll be a form being sent out. We'll drop it in the chat as well for additional feedback. Thank you all for your time, advice, and expertise. Thank you, CT Alliance, for joining us here today as well. Really, please reach out, fill out the survey. We'd really love your feedback. This is an ongoing process, and we're trying to build a apprenticeship program that really meets provider needs. So thank you all, and I'll turn it back to Kathleen and team for any other final wrap.
Great, thank you.
I'd just like to thank Social Finance, Alliance for Community Empowerment, and Early Care Connection for their time this morning so that we could present this registered apprenticeship development to the broader community. And we're really excited that and hopeful that this will help to address the worker shortage in the industry. Social Finance, did you have any final words?
Nothing from us other than to thank everybody for participating. Also to thank folks from the Alliance as well for highlighting their experiences. And to thank you all for your time and giving us a chance to come and talk about this. And please keep the feedback coming. We shared the link to the form in the chat, but also you'll have our emails after this call, I believe. Please feel free to contact us that way as well.
If there are any emails or phone numbers that you can pop into the chat, that's probably also helpful for the folks who are here right now.
Sure.
It does sound like this is a work in progress a little bit. And so I think if folks do have comments, questions, please do use that survey and get in touch. This program will, of course, like all others, be better when you all have your expertise as a part of the process. Great. All right. Anything else?
We at Alliance would also say thank you for allowing us to be on this forum to talk and to discuss about our experiences. What we wish to happen is that we are able to become apprenticeship because we recognize how important the process is and how important the workforce needs to be in early childhood.
Yeah, thank you all for joining. And, I guess my only last words of encouragement are just to, take all of these comments into mind, because I think the worry is that some providers will be left out of this, or some folks will be left out. And we want to, I saw one comment in the chat that, just to make sure we're centering equity, make sure we're really considering all of the factors. So I can hear from all of you that you're trying to be thoughtful about that. And I would say that it sounds like there's still some concerns that could be incorporated. So appreciate all of you for being here and for this work in progress that has probably the potential to be really excellent. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we are going next to Meryl Gay and Ava Bermudez Zimmerman to talk about public hearings and what's up this week.
This morning, actually right now, the Education Committee is holding a public hearing on SB 5, which is a aircraft carrier bill with a whole bunch of stuff, mostly public school related in it, but there is Section 7, which would make all families eligible for baby bonds eligible for Care for Kids. And it would eliminate the income restrictions. So once you were born on Husky and qualify for baby bonds, you would then be eligible for Care for Kids until you age out of the program. This would be a big step in eliminating the administrative barriers that keep families from being able to access Care for Kids. Right now, only about 1 in 5 income eligible children is actually on Care for Kids. Obviously, there would be a huge price tag to this, and getting something through the Education Committee is just the first step in the process. But when I checked this morning, most of the testimony on this bill that's been published is testimony from the Turkish community opposed to a completely unrelated section that talks about teaching about the Greek genocide from the 1920s or something. So it would be really helpful if folks could submit testimony about the importance of making all the families born on Husky eligible for Care for Kids. And I think that there's we've posted stuff. Yeah, Izzy's posted stuff in the chat on how you can link to that to be able to use the testimony builder and take a couple of minutes to submit some easy testimony about the importance of making it easier for families to get on Care for Kids.
The second link, not the first one.
The second one.
I just deleted the second one.
I just want to back
I
up
just deleted
Meryl
the
on
first
that.
one, excuse me. Okay,
Okay, so that's the correct link, Izzy.
the correct link is up, yep.
So if you're wondering, if folks are wondering, what is Meryl talking about? Did we hear about this? The answer is, if you're on the ECE listserv or on the Child Care for Connecticut's Future CCFCT listserv, if you regularly receive our emails, then we sent something out, but it was Friday. So many of you, when you close your provider doors and you drop, you give that last child back, you're done, right? It's the weekend. You're going to go shopping. You're going to have dinner. You're going to have a life. So buried in your emails, there might be the details for this bill. Don't worry. We're going to send it again. When Meryl mentioned it to be an aircraft carrier, like basically a plane with a bunch of supplies in it. The reason that they do this, this year is a short session. Session ends much sooner when we're not talking about the budget. So in order to get all the things that we need for early care education that will help and give resources, legislators put a lot of details and a lot of different subject matter in one proposal. So this is one of those types of bills. It has, that's how Meryl mentioned, the Turkish community also has very strong feelings about another detail that has nothing to do with early care and education. We're driving this plane. We just got on this plane. Early ed is on this plane. But now legislators are going to decide, well, there's too many people on the plane. We don't want to let go of people on the plane, but let's go, let's drop some boxes to make it lighter so we can all get home. So hopefully they're not dropping our boxes. And that means that we all have to testify and push the legislators and say, this was a fabulous idea. Please don't let us go. Don't let our, luggage go down the hatch or down the window. But we have to make sure we submit testimony. So when you see an email from the Early Childhood Alliance today, as well from CCFCT or this week about this bill, just click on the link and it'll walk you through how to submit testimony.
Okay, great. We have, Meryl, a quick follow-up question from Eileen. Does it eliminate the work requirement or just income? You're muted.
It does not eliminate the work requirement. It simply says that, if their circumstances change and they go over income, that they remain eligible for care for kids. They would pay 7% of their income for childcare.
Okay, and I wanted to call on, let's see, Robin, Robin Green, you have your hand up. She may or may not be there. Robin, are you available? Okay, that's all right, moving on. Was there, did you guys have more to announce?
We wanted to hit it hard on testimony, on submitting written testimony. If you see references to other bills about submitting testimony, it's still possible for you to submit this week. So we did have other bills that we emailed on last week, I believe Thursday. So if you didn't have a chance to submit for other proposals, in our email from CCFCT, we're mapping it out with the links, and you can still submit.
Great.
I'm sorry, Izzy, were you asking me to come up?
Oh, no, I apologize, Georgia.
Okay, I'm sorry.
But I mean, if you did have something to add, you're certainly welcome to.
I do want to add something. And again, you guys know how passionate I am about apprenticeship. I have been pushing apprenticeship now for 9 years in this state. And I think apprenticeship is a wonderful tool for building the workforce that is, it's built our workforce for sure. And we've used that for many years to basically hire staff and to support them and basically get the staff that we want. My concern with what's being proposed again is when we have apprenticeship being driven, even I will acknowledge I was a part of that design team. Part of my feedback was that they have to come to this larger body and not just sit with a small group of providers to basically design this program, because by virtue of us sitting with you speaks to our privilege in the system. There are providers who cannot leave their classroom to go sit in a meeting because they are so short-staffed. And an apprenticeship program is really designed for those providers. And again, being a part of the workforce program, this is a very expensive and labor-intensive process that's being designed and developed here. And unless you have the infrastructure in your program to do this, i.e. you're well-resourced, apprenticeship will be out of reach for many center-based programs. And this program is being designed and developed with the idea of an RFP, which will provide those very, very lucky programs who will have access to those funding through the RFP. But if I wanted to go and to say, well, I didn't get funded by the OEC to do apprenticeship, but I believe in apprenticeship and I want to do this, the Department of Labor will not allow an employer to set any standards below what OEC is proposing as a minimum standard. And so I just want to caution this group that if we want apprenticeship to flourish in this state, for every single provider, whether they're well-resourced or not, we have to challenge some of these minimum standards that are being proposed, because the mentorship component requires you to have a staff person who will be available outside of your work schedule to basically mentor a person. Now, I don't know how many people have a staff person that have that freedom and that flexibility to provide mentorship outside of work time, or how many programs will be able to cover and a mentor to provide mentorship during work time and have that classroom covered. But if I want to propose an apprenticeship program without a mentorship component, I cannot do that. I cannot do that. So by just that standard, minimum standard alone, I have to be well resourced. And so, you know, again, I have been pushing for this program for 9 years. It has served my organization really very well. And I don't want programs not to have access to this, but what is being proposed is very costly for providers. And if providers are not prepared to do this in the way that it's being designed and developed, then many providers will opt not to do an apprenticeship program. And that's not the vision that I would like to, the path that I would like to see apprenticeship go down. And I will get off my soapbox and I'll leave you guys to your business for the rest of the morning.
No, well, Georgia, we appreciate it. I mean, I know that you have been passionate about this for a long time, so I'm glad you were able to be here this morning. And, you know, as I always say, I am not an expert on any of this. It's my job just to keep this conversation flowing. And so we really rely on folks like you, folks like Ava, you know, Meryl, all the people here who know a lot more to help us get the perspective we need on all of these issues. Without that, we're just taking in information and not understanding how to process it. So I think you being willing to share your perspective and help folks understand it from a different lens is very important. And so I'm appreciative of you for being willing to spend some time on here this morning doing that.
Thank you. And I hope you guys also understand equity is equally my passion. And if I don't see, if I see the equity traps, I am going to speak out, and I've been punished for speaking out, but there is no point of doing this work and saying that we care about equity and not say, here are the places where small providers, less resource providers, or providers that don't have all of the full infrastructure will be disenfranchised. And thank you guys for allowing me to speak to that.
Something that I'm curious, Georgia, and only time will tell, is the longevity of this program. I 100% agree with everything that you just said. And for the lucky few who do qualify to participate in this specific framework, that's fantastic. You know, we all want to lift people up and give them opportunities, and the testimony was inspiring, but it, like you said, it's going to be a lucky few. So if you do have a lucky few and funding runs out and there is an additional funding from the state to walk apprenticeship programs to participate, or centers to participate, then what happens to this framework? So
exactly. And that's what I'm trying to raise up here, because if the legislators do not fund OEC to do apprenticeship, then the cost of this will then rest on the employer, and the employer's willingness to take up all of these costs and doing this on their own. And there will only be a few employers that will opt to do this because it is expensive, and OEC is building a system that is dependent on the state to fund. And if the state chooses not to fund, then apprenticeship pretty much will die. And so my thing is set a minimum standard for entry for every employer, so that if there is no funding going forward, employers can still support this system. But when we're building all of these components in, it creates a two-tiered apprenticeship system, one that is well funded by the OEC and one that is it's gonna not have the resources available. So you're gonna have folks who are gonna choose to go to the OEC funded apprenticeship rather than other apprenticeship because they're gonna get all of these goodies over here. And then if now you have a well-developed apprenticeship through the OEC and funding ends, then apprenticeship is really going to be rested in the hands of very wealthy and well-resourced center. It will not be a program and a process for all. And we need to build a program and a process for all because we are all struggling with staffing issues, and we should have entries and not have barriers for identifying and training and supporting our staff through either an apprenticeship or a workforce program. So Eva, you have rightfully identified my big concern with building a structure that can only be supported going forward with funding from the legislature. And they are going to rely on us to go and advocate for funding that will only serve a few programs.
Yeah, I hear you. And like so many things in early childhood, the lack of funding puts up a million barriers. And yeah, that's the big push, right? Yeah. Okay, let's see. Thank you again, Georgia. Ava, Meryl, anything else that you want to cover this morning? All right, listen, everybody, it literally takes 3 minutes to do the written testimony builder. The link is up in the chat. You can go there. There's a link. What I shared has the links to both the written testimony builder and also to watch the hearing live. It's on the Education Committee's YouTube channel. So both of those links are there. The testimony builder is very simple. You can add in some of your own thoughts if you have them. You can just kind of go through the process and add in a few sentences. It does not have to be, Shakespeare. This is put in a few sentences that clearly represent your perspective. Hit submit. It takes 5 minutes. So go ahead, everybody here. We've got a couple hundred people still left here. If you all went and took the 3 minutes to do it, we would be able to really flood that education inbox, and that's what we want to do. So go ahead and do that. Let's see. Is that it, everybody? Hold on, Meryl, you're muted again.
You have a hand raised.
Oh, hand raised. Okay, Morgan Evans. Let's see. Meryl, we're here in the hearing behind you. Morgan, if you wanted to jump in, you are welcome to. Could be an accidental hand raise again. I know whenever I let hand raises on, I love hearing from you guys, but we always have a few accidents. And that's okay. All right, well.
So just
yeah.
For anybody watching today's hearing, understand that there are many sections of the bill and only one of them has to do with early childhood. So most of the people who will be talking are not talking about early childhood. They're talking about all kinds of other stuff.
Right. And I know the Child Care for Connecticut has been posting the early childhood folks on its YouTube. And so it's youtube.com/childcare for CT. I don't know if you can pop that into the chat, Ava, but if folks are not able to watch the hearing, but you want to see your friends and community testify, you can always go to that YouTube channel to wade through the muck. It'll take I shouldn't say muck. Everybody's testimony is extremely valuable to wade through the things that are going to be less interesting to the early childhood community. It'll take a few days to probably get those up online, but they'll be there in a few days. So, okay.
Morgan did unmute, and I think then they did unmute.
Okay. Morgan, did you want to jump in, or was that an accident? Okay. Hard to know. All right. Next week we've got tentatively. Well, we had a tentative confirmation from OEC that we would have the DCF conversation next Monday. So say the date for that, although let me say it's not 100% confirmed yet. And then also Sherry Sotero will be talking about the survey results that they just posted up. Okay, so, oh, it was a mistake, and that's fine. All right, so we'll see you back here next Monday. Have a wonderful week. Enjoy some of the flowers that are freakishly popping up way too early, but they're beautiful nonetheless. And hope you can tune in to a little bit of education committee and take 2 minutes to go send in your testimony. Thanks, everyone. Have a great week.